Grand Rising people, how you doing? Grand Rising. Welcome to another wonderful edition of Going Live with Coach Renz. And today we're going to continue with talking about societies that have existed prior to the Genesis story in that Mediterranean area. So we've already, if you go back into some of the last few lives, you've seen us talk about the Kemetic creation story. We've talked about the Sumerian creation story. And today we're going to talk about a civilization that's just a little bit older than the Israelite Hebrew civilization, and that would be the Greek creation story. So we're going to give people about 5 minutes to get on here. But while we are waiting for people to come on, let's do a little bit of housekeeping, if you will. So the other day, I posted a video where I was explaining, I explained before, but I posted a video where I was saying that, hey, YouTube, they took me out of the monetization program for this channel, which was a decent part of our income. YouTube, Facebook also had a decrease of 90%. I don't know what Facebook is doing. So I asked people, if you'd like to donate and help the channel, that you can just donate like this right here. And some people did. And I want to acknowledge some of those people who have donated recently to the channel through my Cash App. So I want to thank Chris Sinsat, and if I say your name wrong, I apologize, but Chris Sinsat, Randolph Lomini, Hector Cortez, CJ Beatty, Derek Frazier, Samuel Smith, Anthony Givens, Tia Austin, Joseph Mayfield, Alfredo, Kelly Durden, Fred, and Karen Arnold. I want to thank those people because over the last month or so, they have helped, because I won't be able to get these channels back to monetization until I won't be able to reapply for monetization until the end of this month, which means that it won't have any effect until towards the end of February. So I want to thank those people. It has been very appreciative of your gift. I greatly appreciate it. And I think I'm going to make that a common thing, that when people donate to the channel, I want to make sure I give them a shout out for donating to the channel. And that's the best way to do it. So I appreciate those people that I just named for them contributing to the channel. I also want to thank everybody who's a subscriber to Facebook and, who's a member of YouTube and a subscription holder to Facebook, because that also helps out a lot as far as keeping the channel going. And so, thank you. Also, when YouTube decided that I was going to do this anyway, but when YouTube demonetized this channel, I did start a new channel, a relationship-oriented channel. That channel the link will be posted very shortly here. It is basically my personal Facebook page, Lorenzo Reed, as well as on YouTube, it is Lorenzo Reed, and that's Larenzo, Lorenzo Reed 369. If you're interested in discussing relationships and that sort of thing, then that is a great channel for you to go and be a part of, especially on the YouTube channel. But I appreciate anybody who's there. I would donate, but I ain't even got to walk around. I understand, Tim. Grand Rising, Tim. You're using my term, huh? Got some walk around money. But I appreciate you being here, watching the videos, sharing the videos. Also is a great help. So everybody who shares the videos and watch the videos, that is a great help as well. Tarilo, thank you for being here. Tarilo, I think I'm saying your name right. Tarilo Beats. You're a Gnostic Christian. You agree with my overall position on the Bible, but I'm fine with Jesus Christ. I don't think his father is Yahweh. Okay. Most Gnostic Christians are fine with the Jesus character. They just view Jesus in a different way than the Christians would normally view him. And thank you, Angelina, for posting the where you can get, if you desire to get the merch, the shirts that says things like, you got to free yourself to be yourself because your greatness is non-negotiable, and good journey, good vibration. Angelina just posted the link to that on Facebook, and she'll post it on YouTube when she's done with Facebook, as well as the link to the page for the relationship channel. Is it chaos is the cosmic void, the true God? Yes, we're going to talk about that in just a minute here, because the Greek mythology is part of that whole Mediterranean culture. Oh. Well, it's been about 6 minutes, so we're going to go ahead and get started. So like I said before, I want to thank everybody who's donated to the channel, especially this last month or so. It's been a great benefit to keeping the channel alive, especially with all the demonetizations that's going on right now. And I plan to get all of it going back to its normalcy by the end of February. So thank you again for those who have donated to the channel. So today we're going to discuss some of the similarities between the Greek creation story and the biblical creation story. Now, the thing about it is that you have to understand that these people all were Mediterranean cultures. And with them being Mediterranean cultures, they spent plenty of time conversing with one another, learning from one another, trading with one another, merging cultures with one another, and warring and conquering one another. And through all of this interchange, their stories have a lot of similarities. Now, what we look for the most is the fact of when the stories were being told or written. So to set the table, I like to look at the time frame of each story, of the time of when the stories are written. Now, cigar almost went out. Grand Rising, Aqua and Nico. So as explained in the previous videos concerning this similar subject matter, but talking about the Cometics or the Sumerian, we now have a closer time frame of civilizations being able to have communication with each other. I had to do something real quick. So as we know that as far as the Kemetic people are concerned, not Kemetic, the Israelite Hebrew societies are concerned, we know that the Meneptah Stele is the first time that we ever hear about a Israelite or a Hebrew. In that Meneptah Stele, presented by Pharaoh Meneptah, in and around the 1200s BCE, is the first time an Israelite is ever mentioned. The Israelite people came about out of the Canaanite people in and around towards the end of the beginning of the Bronze Age collapse, which began around 1200 BCE as well. So Meneptah was attempting to keep control of the Levant because Egypt had controlled the Levant for about 3,000 years at this time frame. So the Canaanite people were all just people under Egyptian rule. And Israelites didn't really begin to separate themselves until around the mid to late 12th century BCE, which right around 1250, 1280 BCE. Now, after they separated themselves from the Canaanite people, they began to change their religion and teach a different form of religion, because the Canaanite religion was more akin to the Sumerian Akkadian religion, with the idea of Anu and Enlil and Enki, and whereas Enlil had become known as El. So the earliest any reasonable person can say that the Israelite creation story could have been orally told would have been in that 13th century BCE timeframe. So where does that leave us with the Greeks? Well, Greek civilization, Greek culture actually began in and around the 17th century BCE. That puts it around 1600 BCE is the earliest knowledge of the Greek civilization. This would be the time frame of when Pythagoras goes to Kemet and learns and then starts the Greek civilization in Croton. So in and around that 1600 BCE is when we first start getting these Greek stories. That puts them a good 400 years prior to the Israelites separating themselves from the Canaanite people. I have no fuel in this thing. This is going to irritate me. So you have a 400-year time difference, a 400-year head start by the Greek civilizations, but when they were more than likely at their time frame beginning their story, telling their stories, and even writing their stories down. Now, we don't have the earliest written version of their story is not until around 700 BCE, which is similar to how the Israelite Hebrew story may have been told in and around the 1200 BCE, but we have nothing written down until around 600, 500 BCE, and most of it being edited throughout that time frame. You might find certain things you may be able to find in around 5 and 600 BCE, but most of it is written down after. But the oral tradition definitely started after the Greek tradition has started. Grand Rising, John. So that tells us that the Greek story is still a few centuries, almost a half millennium, older than the Israelite story. So, what possible similarities or things could have been grafted from the Greek story to the Israelite story, especially considering there was a time frame in the 3rd century BCE that the Levant, the Israelite people, were conquered by the Greek people. And as we know, the Bible is the New Testament is written in Greek, as they were under Roman control because the Romans eventually conquered Greece. And Greek was the predominant language that was spoken during that time. It was a language that was predominantly spoken during that time frame. It was especially a language that was used by the Romans for a show of higher education and worthiness of being a Roman. So, the Greek creation story. So, in the beginning, there was, I got to get used to this mirror thing. There was darkness or chaos. We already know it's starting to sound similar. In the beginning, there was darkness, there was chaos. And out of that darkness comes this bird with these big wings called Nyx, right? And of course, because the story is being told over a longer period of time, you have certain variations. But out of the darkness comes this bird Nyx in this oldest version. The bird Nyx lands upon it and lays an egg. And out of that egg is born Eros, god of love. But in other stories, and it's appropriate that there's a light right there, that under there says light. In other later stories, Nyx is nixed. And the story says out of the darkness then just came light, right? So the Greeks already had the chaos, as you have in your Bible, of darkness. In the same way we talked about the Sumerians and the Kemetics had the same thing of darkness. And out of that darkness comes light. And in this case, we got an egg. The Greeks could have gotten the egg idea from the Kemetic story when Pythagoras spent his time in Egypt and learned about Ra coming out of the cosmic egg. But both have the light, that out of that darkness comes creation. Now, Eros, or the light, produces the beginnings of the Titans. And out of those Titans, the two primary ones you have is Uranus and Gaia. Now, there are many titans that were birthed out of that. For instance, there was Pontius. Pontius was the goddess of the primordial waters. So again, we have that idea of the primordial waters, and the Bible use the term of God breathed over the waters of the earth. And so Pontius represents those primordial waters. So they had Uranus, who when the egg broke, the cosmic egg broke, the top part of the cosmic egg, the dome, becomes the sky, and the lower part of the cosmic egg, Gaia, becomes the earth. So the sky and the earth were then created when the cosmic egg broke or when light appeared. And then they were separated by the two halves of that cosmic egg, which can be similar to having a dome. But that separation happens kind of like Jeb and Newt had to be separated. And it is through the god Eros or light that happens. Now they have many children. They have like a whole bunch of damn kids. They wind up having but there are like 12 primary titans that came out of it. And out of those 12 primary titans, the two most important were Kronos and Rhea. Now, Kronos, because Uranus feared that he would lose his authority when Kronos was born, Gaia, because she, wait, let me rephrase. He feared he would, no, I'm saying that wrong. I'm skipping. Uranus and Gaia would have a bunch of other Titan children and grandchildren, Kronos and Rhea being the primary two. But out of this union and all their children, you also got a whole bunch of Cyclops, and you got a bunch of monsters, as they say, the Hydras and things of that nature. And Uranus was so like, what the hell, and thought that it was wrong and jacked up, that he cast the Titans into Tartarus. Now, I'm pretty sure you guys remember Tartarus. As mentioned in the writings, Paul is the one who mentioned Tartarus as a place called as hell. That is a part of hell, a part of Hades. So they're cast down into Tartarus, which is the bad part of the underworld, because the underworld has multiple levels on it and in their teachings. So those Titans, they were cast down there. The monsters and the Cyclops, they were cast into Tartarus. So then, hold on. Because I like, these stories are vast. Nico said, Erebos is the personification of darkness, and in Hasad's theogony, I'm probably saying Hasad's name wrong. He is the offspring of chaos and the father of Aether and Hemir, probably saying it was wrong, day and night, day by night, and Nyx is night. Now, the thing about when we get to that guy, his theogony is written in and around the 6th century BCE, around the 500s BCE. And he's the primary guy that we're going to talk about when we get to Pandora. So thank you for that information, because these stories do change, and that just how it works. Just like Christianity has changed from what it is now to what it was 500 years ago. But back to the story. So Gaia, she pissed. She mad as hell. You taking my children and you casting them down to the worst parts of hell. This is some bullshit. So she mad. And so she gets her son Kronos to go to war against his father Uranus. Or his grandfather. Uranus is his grandfather. Go against his grandfather Uranus. And he cuts off Uranus' ping. Just cut it off. And blood and piss and spilling out of his ping, right? And as it's spilling out of his ping, in some stories, the goddess Aphrodite was then created, and she became the goddess of love. And so you got Eros, who's the god of love, and then Aphrodite becomes the goddess of love, right out of the ping of Uranus, when Kronos cut it off because he was afraid that he would lose his power. Well, he was mad. He didn't like all the uh the cyclopses and stuff like that. He didn't like his kids. So then Kronos, he's in charge now. He's the big dog, you know. And Kronos decides he's going to marry his sister, Rhea, right? He said, ouch. Yeah, exactly, Tim. Uh, so he marries his sister, Rhea. And him and Rhea start having some kids. But because there's a prophecy, and I don't know where the prophecy comes from, but there's a prophecy that the children of Kronos are going to grow up and they're going to kick his ass and kill him. And Kronos is not having that. So each time he has children, he's swallowing the kids. He eating the kids, right? You know, he gluck 3,000 and on his own children, which is kind of nasty. But he eating his own kids. But his kids are immortal. So his kids are inside of him and they're growing and becoming adults, but they're inside of Kronos. So finally, and I'm gonna draw back to something in a minute. But so finally, Zeus is born. Zeus, the god who saves, is born. And Rhea does this thing where she says, I'm going to wrap a rock in swaddling clothing and present that baby in swaddling clothing to Kronos. Maybe that's where they got the swaddling clothing idea for the Jesus character. But he wrapped them up and wrapped up the rock, gave it to Kronos. Kronos eats the rock. Zeus then grows up in a foreign land, kind of like Jesus. The saving God grows up in a foreign land in Crete, raised by some other lady, I forgot. And some say that the other goddess lady was a goat, and some think it was a nymph, but it was some other animal human hybrid looking thing. So, therefore, you got Zeus. Zeus grows up, he gets old enough, gets big enough, gets strong enough. And then his mother teaches him how to put this mixture together, and they give the mixture to, and the mixture is given to Kronos, and it causes Kronos to vomit out his adult children that he had swallowed. And Zeus gets those adult children and the 100 hand person animal thing, and they go to war, and they fighting and they beat Kronos. Sounds like a war in heaven. There's a war in heaven because remember, Gaia is Earth. So all of this is happening in and around Uranus. And so this war in heaven happens. And when Zeus and the other gods win, they then give stars, they create the stars for Uranus. So that's why you see all the, just like Jerry Springer, exactly. So that's why they gave stars the names for, you know, Aries and, you know, is it Aries? Yeah, Aries in the Greek. Aries, and for Aphrodite, and for all these other gods. And Apollo becomes the god of the sun, and on the fiery chariot, and so on and so forth. So the Greek gods now ran by Zeus, who has chopped up his daddy, chopped up Kronos, and threw him down into Tartarus as well. So now Kronos is in Tartarus with his other brothers, sisters, and grandparents, and great uncles, and all of them, right? So now Zeus is the king of the gods, which also makes him the king of the universe, so to speak. And out of that, and I'm gonna get used to it. Out of that, Zeus then decides that he's want his grandmother Gaia to have life. So at this time frame, there is no life on Earth. So Earth is just a creation, kind of like these events are happening prior to the creation of man and animals, just like in the Bible, how it tries to create all these people. But just like in the Bible, you have to have this war in heaven, and these titans are thrown down into Tartarus, are thrown into hell, just like you have the war in heaven where they're thrown down into Earth and they're chained, and these dudes can't get out. Zeus ain't letting them out, right? So Zeus decided, well, we're gonna put life on Earth. Let me see which one. Let me slide, slip and slide. All right. Hold on, I don't want to miss all y'all statements. Like I said, is on a one guard is on a one guard. I know who made the earth. The sun and the moon made us. It's only one God knows. Only one God knows, and that guy in heaven, he can come back soon. Okay, yeah, I don't think you know what you're talking about because this is what the Greek people believe for themselves. Just like you believe in whatever nonsensical story you decide that you want to believe in. So, to continue beyond that dumb shit, Zeus decides that he wants to put life on Earth. So Zeus has he has some kids. He marries Hera, and he has a couple of kids. Two of his kids, Prometheus and Epitheus, these two brothers are given the task of putting life on Earth. Prometheus is tasked with creating man. How does he create man? He creates man through clay. So just like the Bible says that man Adam was created through dirt, so was man created by Prometheus through dirt. Now this man doesn't have a name, but it is often thought about as a tribe of man was created by Prometheus with dirt. And it's interesting because it is not Zeus who breathes life into man, but it is the goddess Athena who breathes life into man. You say Aphrodite was his wife? I thought Gia was his wife. I mean, not Gia. Yeah, who is Zeus's wife? Hera. Hera is his wife. I'm going to look that up, Trauma. Who is the wife of Zeus? Hera. Oh, you're asking. No, Hera is his wife. Aphrodite was created when Kronos cut off Uranus's penis, and through all the blood and the water and the spit and the stuff, she was created. So Prometheus creates man. Epitheus, he creates all the animals. Now they were instructed to give gifts to the animals and to man. So Epitheus, he goes and he gives them claws and wings and skillfulness and stealthiness and cunning and all these gifts to all the animals. So by the time Prometheus finished creating man and Athena comes and breathes life into man, which is similar to the Bible, how it says this God breathed life into man. The Greeks already had a story talking about how life had to be breathed into man by a god. And in this case, it's a goddess who breathes life into the clay figures exactly, and gave them a soul and spark of divinity and intelligence. See, my boy here, you must really. I used to study Greek mythology like a champ when I was in middle school, but you must still have all that knowledge because I used to know these stories verbatim. So Prometheus makes man. Now, some think that when Prometheus made man, he also made woman, right? And there's a reason for that. That the tribe of man was both men and women. That's why no one individual person is named. But after he making man, there were no more gifts. Epitheus had given all the gifts to the animals. So Prometheus figured, well, even though the gods are the only ones who's supposed to have fire, what I'm going to do anyway is that the next time I see Apollo rising over the sunset, I'm going to go up there and I'm going to grab some of that fire and I'm going to give it to man. So that's what Prometheus does. He goes, he gives the fire to man, and then Zeus is pissed. And we're going to see that Zeus is very petty, and the behavior of Yahweh is very similar to Zeus. Zeus is petty. Zeus gets pissed off at Prometheus, and he says, "You gave man fire. You taught man how to use it and to keep it, and I'm going to punish you by chaining your ass to a rock. And every day a vulture is going to come by, and he's going to peck at you and eat your liver. And then your liver's going to grow back, and the next day he's going to come by, he's going to peck and eat your liver. And the next day is going to keep happening for all eternity, that you're going to keep getting your liver eaten by this vulture." So Prometheus, according to the Greek mythology, he's still chained to some rock somewhere, having his liver eaten every day, right? Stop talking about cutting off ping ping. It's going to give you night terrors. Look, Tim, that's what they said. I didn't say that. I would have never written a story about man getting Uranus getting his ping ping cut off. maybe that's why we named the planet Uranus, and then we say your anus because he ain't got a ping ping no more. He just got a butthole. And maybe that's why the planet Uranus is Uranus that's tilted. Its poles are sideways compared to every other planet. Yeah, maybe that's why that planet's named Uranus because it's sideways because all he got is a butthole and he ain't got nothing sticking out the other end. So y'all know we'll say some stupid shit on here. Where was I in the story? Oh yeah, so Prometheus is punished. But what's stupid, the pettiness of Zeus, is that he also punishes man for having fire that he never asked for that Prometheus brought. So man then is being punished by Zeus for something that man didn't do. Sounds like being in the Garden of Eden. I'm gonna punish y'all, even though somebody else gave you something that I didn't want you to have. So Prometheus is like the serpent in the garden, giving man something that he wasn't supposed to have. And so just like the serpent he lost his legs and he got to eat the dust. Prometheus is chained to a rock and gets his liver eaten every day. So he gets punished just like this in similar fashion to the serpent. And then man also gets punished for doing something for just accepting a gift. Whereas according to this Genesis story, Adam was just given a gift and he is now being punished. So man is now punished. Right? Now, that's not the end of some of the similarities in just the creation story, because we're not going to get to the deluge. We're not getting to the flood story. Because we're not done with Epitheus. So after this happens with Prometheus, Zeus says, hey, you know what? We're going to create, and this is where the story is in the 6th century BCE and 4th century BCE, the story by Hesiod become prominent because this is where we get Pandora. So according to the Greek story, Hesiod's story, version of the story, Hephaestus creates Pandora. He uses Aphrodite as a model, crafts this beautiful woman. Now, in the first version of his story, he crafts the woman Pandora, and she is the bane of all man's existence. In the first version of the story, she he talks about how if a man has a woman, she will not be a helpmeet to him, especially when he's poor. She will turn against him. And then even when he got money, she's still going to be a problem to him. And that all of man's issues will come from the woman. So that patriarchal mentality of women ain't shit was already part of the Greek story. And all them Mediterranean people were thinking the same way with their male dominant behaviors. Later on, Hesiod changes the story, and I know I'm saying his name wrong. He changes the story a little bit, and he says that she is not the bane of his existence, but she is a pain in the ass. But man had other issues, and those other issues come from the more famous story about Pandora that most of you guys have probably already heard before. And this is where Pandora is created by Hephaestus. Hephaestus, then Zeus presents Pandora as a gift to Epitheus, and Epitheus goes ahead and marry her, even though Prometheus warned him, don't take a gift from that dude. He's gonna screw you over. But Epitheus, he takes her anyway, marries Pandora. This is gonna sound like the Garden of Eden kind of thing. He marries Pandora. Zeus commands all the other gods, the 12 primary gods on Mount Olympus, hey, I need y'all to give her a gift. So all the gods are giving her gifts. She gets the gift of being like Aphrodite teaches her how to weave shit. She gets a necklace from a different goddess. She learns, all these sweetness and all these other things, cunning from all these other gods. So she gets all these gifts. And they're all put in a jar. Technically, it's put in a jar, but we've retranslated the word to mean box. So that's why we call it Pandora's box. So it's all in his box. Now, Zeus, being the asshole that he is, the gift that he gives Pandora is ultimate curiosity. Now, I want you to think about that. That's why I pause, not just so I can puff, pass, even though this is a cigar and you don't pass a cigar. But he gives her the gift of curiosity. Kind of like putting a damn tree in the middle of the garden. Like, why would you put the tree in the middle of the garden? That makes absolutely no sense. That if you don't want them to eat from the tree, why would you put it in the garden? If you don't want her to, and he instructs her, don't ever open this box. If you don't want her to open the damn box, don't give her this serious level of curiosity. But this is because they don't like women. So as the story goes, Pandora and Epithemus were having a great life. They were happy. They were joyful. Semper Fi, Sam, one of my Marines came on there. Semper Fi, leatherneck, devil dog. But they having a happy life. Everything's great. But because Zeus gave her this unhinged level of curiosity, she just looking at that box, just, I got a God as a husband. You know, I'm living on the living well, living on Olympus, talk to the gods, everything. I'm immortal. Everything's good. Ooh, but that box, ooh, it just bothered me. So what does she do? She opens the box. And when she opened the box or / jar, all the evils that plague mankind to this day escape from the box. All the demons, all the spirits, all these things now escape from the box. Kind of like eating the damn apple, and now sin has entered the world. And I'm not saying it was an apple. We don't know what the fruit was. So, I've heard some of Alan Watts' lectures. I like Alan Watts. So all these spirits entered, and then she hurry up and she closed the box or the jar. And then her and her husband, they like sorry, and they all like, oh, what did you do? And he's blaming her, and she all like, oh, I messed up, my bad. But then they hear a tiny voice, help me, let me out. Oh, what's going on? Let me out. Oh. And they go and they realize that it's coming from the box. And they say, who's there in that box? Who's in there? Oh, it's me. It's Hope. Please let me out. So they open the box / jar, and Hope flies out. And Hope, and I forgot the Greek word for it. It's like epilepsy or some shit like that. Flies out, and now the Holy Spirit of Hope flies out. So she didn't have to find her redemption through the pain of childbirth, but she let the spirit of hope out. And so the spirit of hope now was out there, so that man had hope against all the evil plagues that were released by Pandora. But hope, what first was contained in a jar or box, and then it's out. And Hope is flying around. It's me, it's Hope. I'm here for everybody. I'm Hope. Hey, I got y'all. Don't worry about it. I know you got pestilences and disease and war and everything, but I'm Hope. I'm all the hope and glory. I'm Jesus before Jesus. So, thank you, Nico. That's the Greek word for this hope spirit that was released after all was said and done. So what do we see as similarities between these stories? We see that in the beginning there was darkness and there was chaos. And out of the darkness and chaos, through love or through light, the universe was created. There was the heavens and there was the earth, separated by the egg, the cosmic, the top and the bottom part of the cosmic egg. Pontus was there as the primordial waters over the earth. There was no life. And then with the children, they're going through a whole bunch of war in heaven from the Titans, which are sub below the Uranus and them, and well, sub below love is the Titans. And after a war in heaven, the savior god Zeus finally defeats all the Titans, casts them down as punishment into Tartarus. And then after them being cast down, Zeus decides we're going to make life on earth. He made all the animals and he made man. Animals were made a little bit first and they were given all their gifts, and then man was given a gift. Man was punished, and Pandora was punished because they let evil come upon man, but hope abides. So just like the Bible says that there was darkness and there was then let there be light, and then there was chaos of well, first there was darkness, then there was primordial waters, and then there was chaos. I mean, then they would say let there be light, and then he created separation, just like Uranus and Gaia were separations. And then he created the stars, and Zeus now created all the stars after they defeated Kronos. And then they created all the life, just like this guy supposedly created all the life on the planet, creating the animals first and then creating man. And then man needed a helper, and so Pandora was created, and she brought hell on earth by being disobedient, even though it was the God's fault because he gave her curiosity. And then now man must be saved and redeemed by being obedient to the gods. And that's, since the Greek story ended, there was many savior types that came through. There was Dionysus was a savior type. Hercules was a savior type. Achilles was a savior type. You had many savior types that came through. And so the savior types get meshed up and create your whole Messiah. A Messiah is coming. Whether it's the Israelite version or the Christian version, a Messiah is coming, right? And that light is love. But all in all, there are some similarities that the Israelites more than likely also adapted because they were similar to the Sumerian and the Kemetic story. So since you got the major societies around them having some similarities, they crafted their own story based on those. Yes, and I love my cigars as well. He said, oh, holy shit, I had to restart my phone. So coming back on live, your audio wasn't right with your video. That's not a good voice.
Oh, but I'm Hope and I'm here for you, John. John, how could you say such things? John. And I still have my sticks, John, my thinking sticks. Thank you, John.
John made that for me. So that's pretty much your Greek story. Do you guys think, how many of you guys think that there are similarities? There's enough similarities that you can make the claim, that the claim can be justified, that the people who would become Israelites utilize some of those stories, or at least those motifs of out of the darkness and man being tempted by something, and that's how evil came into the planet. A war in heaven, the stars being created by the gods. And you know, in some Christian sects, they believe that the all the stars were resting places for the angels, or they were the angels. And in the Sumerian story, they were the resting place for the Igigi. But they have the similarity between the separation of the heavens and the earth, as well as, you know, their creation and life having to be breathed into them by one of the goddesses in this case. Because even there was, I forgot who it was, said that he was a Gnostic Christian. Even in the Gnostic version, there is the Plamora, which would be like the darkness that creates everything, and then wisdom, which would be wisdom, which would be somewhere around here with which would be Eros and the egg, and then wisdom, the Sophia, was charged. They wisdom, the Sophia wisdom, and the darkness, the Plamora, created Yaldabaoth, which would, let's see, who would fit Yaldabaoth, which would be Zeus, right? And Zeus created life on Earth by trapping all the Titans, the spirit of the Titans, trapping them on Earth as man, and then them creating, then going through the whole Garden of Eden and all that kind of stuff. And then in the Gnostic version, Jesus is coming to teach people how to get back to the Plamora and realize that Zeus was an evil god that created Earth. So even in the Gnostic viewpoint, it has some of those similarities. Right. Some people also, the demiurge is also that creator of the earth. And he's just as fucked up as Zeus. And then we know that, yes, if we was talking about the Jesus, creation of the Jesus story, which that might be a good series to do as well. How that in the Greek story, there's a whole bunch of demigods that are created because Zeus goes and have sex with a bunch of mortal women. And after their death, they become gods at the right side of, at the side of Zeus. You can, that's Hercules, that's Dionysus, and you even have some of the goddesses getting involved in that kind of nonsense. Because I think Achilles is not Zeus's father. Who is Achilles' parents? Who are the parents of Achilles?
According to British Museum, who were Achilles' parents? Achilles was the son of Peleus, a Greek king, and Thetis, a sea nymph or goddess. Zeus, the king of the gods.
Oh shit! Wait. Right, because I think, yeah. So you got the a human man got down with a nymph or goddess, and they created Achilles. So even the women were getting in on the let's create some demigods. I know it's saying that Zeus and Poseidon, they both was in love with that little chick too, with that little nymph slash goddess. But yeah, there's a bunch of them. There's a bunch of that nonsense going on throughout these stories. That was a common theme, especially for anyone who was a leader or who was important. They would believe that they were sired by a god or a goddess. Whether we're talking about Romulus and Romulus and his brother. Eventually, it becomes Caesar thinks that he was sired by a god. So even up until that time frame, people were thinking, still thinking that those same stories. And if they didn't, they achieved Godhead, God status. But these stories are nothing more but stories. And if the Greek story is false, because you can have just as much faith in this story as you have in any other story, you can't disprove that Uranus is the sky. You can't disprove that Prometheus created man and that Athena breathed life into man. You can't disprove it. So I can believe it. I can easily. It's easily, you can believe it because no one can disprove it. We don't know when men first started having fire or where they got it from. Most likely it was a brush fire or something like that happened. And they're like, ooh, what's this shit? Or they saw a volcano erupt and it burnt up some trees and they're like, ooh, this is nice. Elliot said, "Hey, coach, when adjusting another society's religious myth, do they adjust the characters to connect culturally to that society for easier adaptation?" Yes, that is the process that is termed Hellenization, because the Greeks did one of the best jobs at rolling up, conquering some people, and then finding the connections between their society and the conquered society, and then merging the guys. Like, oh, you know what? Your your god Ra or hero, your god Ra and Isis, that idea of them is similar to our God. And so we're going to make Serapis. Your God, your storm God is similar to our storm God, and we're going to combine the two. Right. So the Greeks were very good at doing that. Right. The sun is fire. And a lot of them had that. There was a sun god. Oh, Ra and Apollo are the same. So, we worshiping the same God, basically. It's kind of like how the Islam and Christianity and Judaism say, oh, we're basically worshiping the same God. But we know the reality is that they don't. Yeah, even though I know you were talking to Tim on this one, but Enki, Prometheus, Lucifer, and the Gnostics, they're similar. I don't know if I'm gonna throw Lucifer in there, but definitely Enki and Prometheus are very similar in their creation. Lucifer is just the planet Venus, really. It's the morning star. It's Venus. It's the planet. Right. They mix Thoth and Mercury, and you get Hermes, which y'all know I like my Kabbalion and my Emerald tablets. And you can still do this today. If you were of Norse mythology, and let's say the Norse went down and conquered West Africa, or the West Africans went up and conquered the Norse people, they will be able to say, oh, Shango and Thor, they're the same. So we're going to call him Thungo or Shangor. Oh, Anansi and Loki, they're the same. We're going to call him Ananki. They can mix it up like that. Oh, Oshun and Odin, they the same dude, right? Both of them start with O, right? Oshuden is what we're going to name him, Oshuden. Tim, I think the important part here, you say you consider yourself a Gnostic, but you don't have any receipts. I don't think Gnostics necessarily have to have dedicated receipts of proof, because true Gnosticism is more of a philosophy and not so much something that's trying to be proven in history about a person or a place or a thing, right? True Gnosticism is gaining your divinity through knowledge. Most knowledge that increases who you are, your self-identity, is philosophical more than it's, I got to have proof of this or proof of that, right? By recognizing, like, one of the things that I like in the Gospel of Thomas, it says that until you bring that which is inside of you outside of you, you will never see the kingdom of heaven. So until you recognize who you are, you will never see the fullness of the universe. Anybody can write that. You can find a similar teaching in Buddhism, in Hinduism, in the Tao, in Hermeticism. So I see Gnosticism as more of a philosophy. I think they mess up when they get too far flung into, you got to have, but this person and that person. Like, one of the Buddhist teaching is that if you see Buddha, you should kill him. And the reason why they say that is because if you see Buddha, you'll start worshiping Buddha, and you shouldn't worship anybody. tell that to Wes Huff and those Christians. You know, I just posted a video on Facebook and YouTube about 30 minutes before we started this about that whole Wes Huff guy. I never heard of him until like a couple days ago. I don't think Wes Huff, he would never contact me because I'm not foolish enough like Billy Carson to try to straddle the fence between some type of Gnostic Sumerian Christian version and try to make it all seem like it has a flow and a right to it. Texas Goddess, we finished the Kabbalion. We read through the entire Kabbalion, and on YouTube there's a playlist for the Kabbalion. So if you go on the YouTube and look at the playlist for this channel, you can see the one that says Kabbalion, and you'll be able to see all the videos for the Kabbalion. But yeah, I'm the guy who was talking about, oh, you need to debate Wes Huff or whatever his name is. I was like, that dude don't want to debate me because it's going to come down to he has no proof of anything, just belief. Like the Iliad and the Odyssey, it was written. We pretty much know the exact words that were written in the original Iliad and Odyssey. But does that make Achilles real? Does that make Cyclopses and shit real? Is Jason and the Argonauts real? Are sirens real? Just because some dude wrote something 2,000, 3,000 years ago, don't make it real. Right, AD. The Great Flood, the Made from Clay, and all that kind of stuff is in the most, it's in the Mesopotamian stories. We did last week or 2 weeks ago, we did the Sumerian creation story. We didn't do the flood, but I did about about 2-3 months ago. I did a breakdown of the Sumerian flood, all the flood stories between the Sumerians, Akkadians, Assyrians, Babylonians, and the Bible. And so you got your Atrahasis, Utnapishtim, Noah, and I forgot the other names, and showed the similarities between all those stories. And of course, I did it based on the oldest, which was the Sumerian, then the Akkadians, then the Assyrians, then the Babylonians, and then the biblical version. Now, are you saying that now the Buddha came out before the Alexander even got close to India? So Buddha was what, around 500 BCE? Alexander didn't get there until like the 200s, 300, 200 BCE. Now, the newer versions of it maybe have been inspired, has been changed because of the Greeks. But I wouldn't say that, and the glorification of Buddha might have come from the Greeks through that influence, if that's what you mean. Y'all moving too fast for me now. Now, that would be interesting. I've never heard of that there's oral traditions that reached India about Hercules before the written tradition. So that would put it prior to the 700s BCE. And that is very possible, very possible. Because with Egypt, there was trade amongst the Mediterranean people and the people in India. So I'm sure that there were some mixing with their stories. But I don't want to get too far ahead on that one, because the next one will be the creation story of the Hindu, because the Hindu, even though I was focusing on Mediterranean societies that came before the Israelite people, I think the Hindu society is important because there are archaeological evidence that people from India came to the Levant prior to Israel. I don't know the Philistines. I haven't seen a lot about their history, their creation story, or their religion. They were Canaanites. So I'm thinking their story was similar to the Sumerian Canaanite story. Oh, somebody said that. Yes, we're going to do the Indian story as well. That'll be the next one, which should be on Wednesday, barring any changes. I know today we were supposed to do this yesterday, but I ain't gonna lie to y'all. Y'all know I'm a Hawks fan, and we had an important game yesterday, and I was like, I'm gonna watch my game. So that's why we moved it to Thursday. I ain't gonna act like. And if you really enjoy the channel, please support the channel. Really could use that right now, since I've been demonetized until later this month when I can reapply, and probably won't see anything until end of February. So if you want to support the channel, there it is. Earlier in the conversation, Angelina posted the link to where you can get merchandise of the, Lion as Liar shirts, for yourself to be yourself shirts. If you want to do that too. All things are appreciated. And I did this earlier, but now that there's more people on here, I want to do it again. So people who recently donated to the channel, I want to give them a big thanks. So that's Chris Sinsat, Randolph Lomini, Hector Cortez, CJ Beatty, Derek Frazier, Samuel Smith, Anthony Givens, Tia Austin, Joseph Mayfield, Alfredo, Kelly Durden, Fred, and Karen Arnold. Thank you guys for your recent donations to the channel. I greatly appreciate it, especially during this time frame being demonetized. So thank you. I want to say thank you to you guys again. Got you at the beginning. Want to make sure I get to say it in front of a bunch of people, because I want y'all to know how I appreciate people. All right, now back to it. Back to it. What's up, Dwayne? Ain't seen you in a while. What is that? Any connection with church on Sunday and sun god worship? 100% big time connection. So prior to the Council of Nicaea in 325, the Christians and Jews worship the Sabbath on the same day, the same time frame, Friday at sundown till Saturday at sundown. But once Constantine did the Edict of Milan, which made Christianity legal in the Roman Empire, and then a few years later, well, almost a decade later, at the Council of Nicaea, there were two main things. It was about organizing Christianity so that they would stop fighting. The Christians would stop fighting throughout the Roman Empire and causing disruption. So Constantine also decreed that Christians, because their Jesus was similar to Sol Invictus, which was, the invincible sun, he ordered them to change their worship day to Sunday, which was the same day that the Roman Empire mostly worship was on that Sunday. Now, the other important reason for this is because Christians and Jews throughout the Roman Empire were saying that we can't work, even slaves, we can't work from Friday evening to Saturday evening. And the Roman people were like, bullshit. So that was causing problems. And so And the Romans thought that the Christians and Jews were lazy because they had so many holidays. Romans didn't have as many holidays. And so he was like, hey, change y'all shit to Sunday so that everybody's on the same path, doing the same thing. So they changed it. That's why those 3 days in the grave don't add up. They have never added up. But yes, that's the worship. And most religions were based on sun worship. Whether we're talking about the Cometics, the Sumerians, everybody, most of them did sun worship. And most of that worship was on Sunday. Now, the Babylonians did it on Saturday, which is where the Israelites get it from. And that was in worship of Baal, of Saturn, or Marduk, which Baal, Saturn, Marduk can be correlated to be the same deity. Don't get ahead, Nico. Don't get ahead of the Indian correlations, man. So, oh, he ain't talking about that. I thought you still. I saw something about India. Yeah, you are talking about it. Stay off the India stuff. That's next week, Nikos. Next week. I grew up in Marietta City, about 5 minutes from downtown Marietta. Our family home is still on North Marietta Parkway. But now we moved around in different apartments with my mom in Marietta. So I've lived all parts of Marietta, except for the part that had money. But that's where I'm from. That's home. I do find it interesting that Islam circles the Kabbalah, whatever it's called, 7 times like the rings of Saturn. Even though Saturn has a hell of a lot more rings than 7, that's just what was visible. Now, I'm gonna see if Hanville, if you really from Roswell Road by the Mary Square, if you know the term, where did you live? Behind the bus station? Now, if you know behind the bus station, oh no, you didn't. You said okay. He said near the Big Chicken. Okay, so you down the street. You down the street. That was gonna tell me how long ago he was in Marietta. Because it's behind the bus station. Only people born and raised in Marietta know what behind the bus station. And you gotta be back in the day. Anyway, you know. Who made the sun? A nebula. Some gases from a nebula. Now that is always interesting, is that they have a crescent moon, which kind of lets you think about the moon worship, their moon gods, and they have a moon god in the old pantheon before Islam took over in the Arabs. Boondocks, what you know about the Big Chicken? That's how we get directions in Marietta. Everywhere you go, it has relations to the Big Chicken. If y'all don't know what the Big Chicken is, just Google Big Chicken, Marietta, Georgia, or Atlanta, Georgia, and you'll see it's the only one in the country. Because the original chicken restaurant had a Big Chicken, so when it got converted over to KFC, they were the only ones who was able to maintain that big ass chicken. And all my life, growing up, it never worked, and then they fixed it recently. Okay, Boondocks used to live in Atlanta. All right, you know, Kabbalah. That's how I thought it's pronounced. See, here's the thing. He says, Cisco is saying that Kabbalah, thank you for the correction on pronunciation, is like Saturn worship, with a 7 times a circling thing. You can find all these paganistic, as they would call them, rituals within every religion, and then they would claim that no, it actually comes from this or that. You know. I'm just putting this out there because Texas Goddess put it out there. And Texas Goddess, next time we come up to Dallas, if you don't show yourself, I'm gonna have a problem with you. We're gonna fight. But yes, for those who don't know, I do different types of coaching, everything from life coaching to business coaching to spiritual coaching. So if you're interested in that, all you have to do is go to my website and book a session. I can put that out there. So if you'd like to book a one-on-one session with me, of course, as anybody who's ever had a session with me knows that before we actually have the session, I'm gonna make you do some homework because I don't walk into sessions unprepared and with no knowledge of what we're talking about or who you are or what the goal is. There's homework to be done before we get into the session. But AB, here's the thing, and I think you can understand it. He says it's funny how the planets play a big role in these pagan religions. It's like they're connected through each other and dividing humanity. No matter where people were, you would look up and you saw stars and you saw planets and you saw, especially before we had all this light pollution and air pollution. Like I can't wait to go out about an hour or two, about an hour and a half away from San Antonio, so we can get into where there's no light pollution. You can really see some stuff. But when they saw meteorites and they saw all these things and comets, everybody around the world saw that same thing. So that's one of the reasons why everybody around the world created divinities out of the stars and the planets. Just like people who live by the ocean created ocean gods. People by the river creates river gods and lake gods. You know, mountain people create mountain gods, and volcano people create volcano gods, and the plains people create that. And then because people saw rain, they got rain gods and storm gods. So whatever you see in nature commonly, that's what people are going to have. And you can tell what an environment was like based on how they created their gods. I can coach you on golf course. Where do you live, Tim? Because we just visited a golf course here in San Antonio, and I can't wait to get out there and play. As soon as the money get right again, as soon as the money get right again, I am going to play some golf. But right now it ain't right, so we cannot play golf. Right. Well, you know what the Romans did? The Romans just basically renamed all the Greek gods. You know, their stories all wind up being very similar, and they just renamed the Greek gods into the planetary names that we have them now. Oh. Hmm. And as far as my coaching, Texas, she knows. It's a whole lot. It's a whole lot. So I expect nothing but truthful information, because how can I help you if I have no idea of your background, of what you've accomplished, what you've been through? I can't help you if I don't know all that information. So I have to know it. So I have to know. There's a lot of information that must be known in order for a coaching session with me. And it doesn't matter, even if it's business, there's still a bunch of homework you're gonna have to do before it's a business coaching. If it's spiritual coaching, there's a bunch of information I'm gonna need. If it's life, if it's health, it's gonna be you want, even if it's something as simple as losing weight, I'm still going with a bunch of information I'm gonna need. Spinoza's God makes the most sense. Who is that? Who was his God? I don't know that one, or I don't know about that name. Texas, I'm not worried about Primer. And because he don't listen anyway. I've done so many videos where I talk about how you don't inhale cigars, but yet the idiocy of them thinks that you still inhale cigars. And it might have been his dumb ass or somebody else who was like, oh, you're breathing it through your nose, you can't help but inhale it. They don't realize that biologically you have a little tube up there that opens up in the back of your mouth before it goes down your throat, and that's how you breathe smoke through your nose. But I guess basic biology just skipped right on over them. I find them hilarious. I know they get on some of y'all nerves, but I find them hilarious. Because the thing about it, they're supposed to be Christian or Bible believers. Where's the love? Bible believers are the least loving people that I've ever encountered. I actually have experienced more love from this racist staff sergeant that I had to work for, over the majority of Christians that I've encountered on this page. Now, I will say this, Prime. Although sometimes your comments are laughable, and every now and then, like today, I did a video based on one of your comments. If you don't have anything constructive to say, you will get banned. If all you're here to do is just sound like an idiot nag, then you can get on somewhere. And you know what's funny, y'all? They will actually feel vindicated if I block them. Oh, see, Coach could handle information. Coach could handle what I was saying. So he had to block me because I was telling them the right stuff. He couldn't handle it. No. I just posted it today. But what time is it? How long have I been on here? Hour and 17 minutes? About an hour and a half ago. Right, we covered that how Gaia is the person. I kept calling her Gia, didn't I? Is it pronounced Gia or Gaia? I know they got that channel they pronounce Gaia, but I've always grew up pronouncing it Gia. But yes, she's the personification of Earth, and that's why Zeus was like, "Oh, now that I've defeated the Titans, I'm going to create life on my great grandmama. No, it's the grandmother, grandchildren. Yeah, on my great grandmama. I'm gonna give her some life, some animals and some humans." Yes, I've answered that question a whole bunch of times, but we always get new people, so I don't mind. But in my opinion, where do we get morality from? We got morality as soon as man began to live in communities. As soon as man started having a mother and a father and started having children, we started developing moralities. Most of those moralities are subjective moralities based on the culture to which you were living in, and then they change over time, which makes them subjective. But there are some moralities that I say are not subjective moralities, like murder and stealing, that sort of thing. But as soon as you begin having communities, you begin to create moralities. So if you go as far back, I did a bit in the video that when, is that the one where Primer had said something? Yeah, it is. When you look at the fact that there was some type of society in California 130,000 years ago at their estimates right now, that society would have had to have morality within it in order for it to function, right? And to say that they didn't have any morality, well, they would have just murdered and killed each other. Now, we murder and kill each other today still, But in order for any society to function as a group, no matter how big or small that group is, there would be some rules to living together. I've been challenging you. Come on, man. Just because somebody challenged me, I don't remember you challenging nothing, but just because somebody challenged me doesn't mean I'm going to respond. Like, what's the purpose of responding to somebody who doesn't listen, who only wants to say you're wrong? Yeah, I said that in the video I posted today also about Wes. He would lose against me. That shit he did to, I didn't listen to the whole thing he did with Billy Carson, but I was just like, Billy Carson showed that he's an entertainer, right? That he is only out here to get views, to accumulate enough people so that he can make a living off books and seminars and views. Um, and the thing about it, you don't have to become an entertainer to do that. You can still do that. It may not be at the level that he's at. Like, would my channel become as popular as his? Probably not, because I'm not willing to straddle the fence on it. See, this is the dumb shit. This is why I don't entertain most of it. But I did answer this question on that video because I wanted to talk about the mastodon that was found in California back in 2022, and the tools, the human created tools that was around the mastodon skeleton, as well as other animals, and that the bones and everything had carvings in them that would indicate that these were tools that were fashioned to be able to cut up the meats and cut the bone up to be able to use in certain function, in certain fashion. Now that demonstrates that there was some type of hunting society in California of 130,000 years ago that hunted down this mastodon. Now, mastodons have been extinct in the Americas for at least 25,000 years, and they are your modern day elephants as they migrated over into Asia and then into Africa. So, is the 130,000 year exact? It's thereabout, because we're not going to be able to get an exact number of years. But it does demonstrate that there were humans around. Now, did those humans believe in Jesus or your God? No, they didn't. We don't know what they believed in because they didn't leave any type of data that would tell us what their beliefs were. We just know that they were a hunting species and they created tools. Now, you can say, oh, them scientists don't know what they're talking about. Okay. I'd rather take science over the fact that somebody wrote a damn book and made up some shit about some kind of God that created the earth by fluttering his breath over the primordial waters. What was that? Life experience teaches more. Yeah, good or bad. Ooh, y'all going too fast for me. Yeah, I hate when they do this. Like, somebody legitimate makes a video saying that, hey, I need some help. I legitimately made my video where I said that, hey, them motherfuckers done demonetized all my channels and changed up Facebook to where it dropped 90% monetization. And I was like, if you want to support the channel, I greatly appreciate it. And made that video. And earlier I read thank you to all the people who did. Hey, and if somebody say, oh, just pray, just pray, and man, bullshit. You know how many people I've seen praying, and they ass got evicted, praying, they lost their cars, praying, they wind up having to be homeless and living on the street. Prayer ain't gonna get you nowhere. It just make you feel good. And I believe this 100. They just do that to keep them from having to do something. Just say you ain't got it. If I don't want to give some, if I don't have something to give to somebody, I just tell them I don't have it. See, this is what I'm saying. There's no data confirming what you're saying. It's not conclusive, nor is it true. Did you even go research the information about the mastodon that they found in California? Did you even go research it? Go ahead and come on here and lie and say that you did. But it is very conclusive that mastodons haven't existed in the Americas for at least 25,000 years. That's very conclusive. But that yet, if you find a mastodon skeleton here, then they must have been here prior to 25,000 years ago. So at minimum, that mastodon had to be at least 25,000 years old. But see, Christians ain't ready for that. They don't want to hear that. Do I think there's a God in general? He has to be right, because there's, well, we're the most beautiful and unique beings in the universe, as far as we know. Yeah, as far as we know. Even if evolution is correct, it still wouldn't make evolution a mistake, right? That's the first thing that we have to stop thinking that way. If we said that evolution was correct, that doesn't make it a mistake. It just means that the situation in our solar system was perfect to produce the type of life that we understand. With the billions of galaxies out there, there has to be hundreds of millions of similar situations. So it wouldn't be a mistake. It would just be a process of life evolving if you go for evolution. Now, do I think that there is a God, intelligent design? Because I lean towards the Hermetic, I do think that the universe is a mental creation. Does that mean it is a God? I don't know. Could be not. Could just be an energy. But either way, it's not any of the ones that, none of the gods of the Bible or any other religion would fit into what a God of the created universe could be, because of all the pettiness and the stupid rules and all that. And it seems to do things exactly like the culture who wrote about it. And that's always interesting. And I don't think humans are perfect or super special. We got some stupid biology. I mean, think about it. The way you produce babies and the way you piss come out the same damn hole. I know it got that little flap, but it come out the same hole. And for some reason, men are attracted to butts and shit come out of butts, but we're still attracted to it. I would have designed the human body a little bit differently if I was designing it. Like your piss and your shit would come out the same spot. It wouldn't come out the similar area. And then with a woman, her pee hole is right above the vajayjay. It should be below the vajayjay, like in the taint area, so that you can not mix, have the possibility of mixing bacteria and shit into your vajayjay, creating issues. It should be like down by the taint. What's so hard about that? That's a bad flaw. That's a flaw in the design as far as I'm concerned. So when did Lazarus die the second time? They don't care about Lazarus. They only care about him dying the first time. Lazarus' death was only important at one time. After that, there's nothing else spoken about Lazarus. I'm surprised there is not to my knowledge, any fan fiction about Lazarus. Just like they did Enoch, you would think that somebody would have written, oh, and Lazarus went on and he went and healed people and he did this and he proclaimed the name of Jesus. And, you would think Lazarus would have became an apostle after that. Prima, if you don't understand what I don't believe much of nothing. I only go by facts of what I can, or what is provable or reasonable estimations. The gods of all these religions are not reasonable explanations. A god cannot be petty, nor have the desire nor need to be worshipped. If a God needs to be worshiped or desires worship, then that means that the energy of desire and need is more powerful than that God, which then therefore not makes that deity not God. So if there is a creator of this universe to which we have no proof of, because the universe is not this perfectly designed system, then it wouldn't be petty nor need worship. It would just exist. It would just be. It wouldn't need us. It wouldn't have a desire for us. It would just be. Now, the baby coming from the same place, I can understand that design because that's where you get the pregnation going. So I can understand that makes sense to me, actually. But the P, that don't make no damn sense. That don't make no sense. The ancient gods does not make any sense today. No, they don't. None of them do. Only chaos makes sense. The cosmic void. And the reason why chaos makes sense is because we've observed what happens with the singularity, because we've observed smaller singularities happening and exploding and bursting out nebulas and all that kind of stuff. Was there a major singularity that restarted it all? Because I don't want to say started, but restarted it all? Sure, it could be. And I wouldn't doubt it based on what we know of the universe, in which we know very little, that this is all a cycle of birth, death, and rebirth, birth, death, and rebirth, birth, death, over and over again. Yeah, and it's all romanticized into some magical void state, and creation comes out of it. It's not magical at all. It's science. It's nature. It's natural. There's nothing magical about. One of the best lines that I loved in a Marvel movie was when Thor said, "What you call magic is just science that you do not understand yet." Right. And this is the other part. We're not located in a void. There's no such thing as a void in the sense of totality. Matter exists at all times, everywhere, period. There is no empty space. Now you can say Saturn is void of human life. There will be a void of human life there, but there is not a void of matter there. Matter exists. They used to think that space was empty, but space is not empty. It has matter. Everything in the known and most likely unknown universe is composed of matter, which is just a frequency of energy that we can grab, understand and hold on to, that becomes somewhat tangible to us. There's a copy from Wikipedia. On this galaxy frame. Okay, you copy. Okay, I see what you're saying. Now, do you do Sodom and Gomorrah? I think you're having a conversation with Cisco. Did you already speak on Hermetic principles being the real truth? No, that wasn't what this video was about today. This was about the Greek creation story. Well, we're talking about almost anything now, but I did a video yesterday where I said that the only real truth is the Hermetic teachings, because the Hermetic teachings pretty much follow the basic nature of the universe. And I mean very, very basic, like on a atomic level of knowledge, basic, because we have no idea to the length of the knowledge of the universe. So we only have this tiny ass knowledge, but the Hermetics are the closest thing leading in the right direction of that. Because everything is mental. There are different levels of consciousness and different levels of existence. As we can see within our own matter structure, there's the atomic level of existence, and then there's our level of existence. So there might be, and there's an energetic level of, might be, there's an energetic level of existence. And all those things are based on vibration and pattern. And then the rate of vibration, which is where are you on the pole? Because we got to be talking about the right thing here, the same thing, and then things swing from one end to the other. Things grow, things die, things grow, things die. And polarization is trying to maintain something to the far right, the higher vibration. And then, or you can maintain things so on lower vibration as well. And it takes masculine and feminine energy to manifest anything. All right, Memphis. Well, yep, as above, so below. One of my favorite sayings. Because that's just what it is. What we see in the micro universe, we see in the macro universe. For all we know, we could be like, what was the movie Men in Black? When the first one, when the whole galaxy was in the little cat necklace, like a marble size. And then when it was all said and done, they drew off and we were just a marble. Our whole galaxy was just in a marble. What's the video I made with your response? It was called, oh, man was here before the Bible. Man is older than the Bible. Man is older than the Bible. Thank you for your donation. I think you're CJ. Thank you for your donation. I really appreciated that. So basically, all mythologies is to teach a certain principle about reality. I thought it was going to be crazy for a second. No, that's all they are. They're just trying to teach their reality. And because of their lack of scientific knowledge, they could only see it certain ways. They believe that there was a deity that created the storm, that in the Greeks, Apollo had a chariot and he dragged the sun across the sky. That's how they saw things. They didn't understand that the stars and the sun is the same thing. And our proximity to it is what allowed for life to be on this planet. And why they didn't understand storm cycles, so they say, oh, there's a god of the hurricane and there's a god of drought that's giving us drought and rain. And especially the Greeks, they had their god. I know in Rome the Roman name is Vulcan. I don't know the Greek name, but he's in the volcano forging tools and shit like that. Well, in one of the stories, when we went over hope, is in the first version of the story, before his name started with H and it just fell out of my hand. Hesapod, whatever his name is, wrote it. Hope was released after she cried out from the box. No, not Hephaestus. Hephaestus is supposed to be the one who created Pandora. But you said it earlier, Nico, the one who wrote in the 6th and 5th century, who kind of is the earliest writing we have with the name Pandora in his theogony. He originally said that hope was released. What's his name though? Nico, you wrote it before, Hipsod or whatever his name was. Who created Pandora? It's gonna give me the company. No, that's gonna give me the God who created Pandora. That's not what I'm looking for. Greek theogony of Pandora. Tell me the name. Hesiod. Hesod. Hesod. Yeah. Hesiod. That dude's version of the story. Hope is released in one version of the story. In his second version of the story, it's released. Hope was released so that mankind could have hope. The Holy Spirit. Right. Hope was the last spirit that was released after all the demons. There are Jewish Christians, goats. Jesus and the Father are parallel to Zeus and Kronos. Yeah, and there are, you can see Zeus as Zeus and the Yahweh. I mean, Yahweh and Jesus being parallel to Zeus and Kronos, especially if you're looking at it from a Gnostic viewpoint, where the demiurge would be Yahweh, the demiurge, versus Jesus, which would be like Yahweh, I mean, Kronos versus Zeus, but yet with Yahweh being the demiurge. So that's how you say it. Hesiod. 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 Yeah. Yeah. We're gonna go with that. Hesiod. If I was back in the 8th, 7th, 8th grade, I would have had that name down pat. I used to know these Greek stories like the back of my hand back then. Do you think Yeshua was a spiritual leader and not really Jesus' character that was made up? I think that there was a bunch of people named Yeshua who was claiming to be the Jewish Messiah, and then they got wrote up to be the biblical Jesus. Even when you look at the writings of Josephus, which would be the earliest historian that wrote about anybody named Yeshua, he wrote about 4 different Yeshuas. Each Yeshuas were different. Some even say that he wrote about 12 different Yeshuas. But all of them in some form or fashion were claiming to be the Jewish Messiah that was going to free them from Rome, to which none of them did, of course. But he didn't write the biblical Jesus. He didn't write about the biblical Jesus. And he's the earliest historian. He was Josephus ben Matthias was born in 34, around 34 CE. So it would have been at least a year to 4 years after the so-called crucifixion. None of the other historians who were adults at that time frame wrote about Yeshua, but Josephus writes about a bunch of different Yeshua characters. It will be about 40, 50 years later. They say he was about 40 when he fought against Vespasian. So it'd been, so about 50 years later that he writes about these 4 different Yeshuas. No, Eris didn't create Pandora's box. No, this dude, no, Zeus, no, Hephaestus created Pandora, and then Zeus ordered all the gods to give Pandora gifts, and they were put in the box because Pandora married Epiphanius married him, and then all the 12 primary gods and goddesses gave her gifts, and they were all put in a box, and actually it's technically a jar. And then Zeus, being the asshole that he was, decided to give her this high level of curiosity. So after a while, even though she was living happily with her husband, she was just drawn to the box too much, and then she opened the box or jar anyway, and all the demons flew out. Do I think that Adam and Eve existed but weren't the first humans? Absolutely not. And absolutely not. Adam and Eve, there was no Adam and Eve. There were no two people that was in the garden, in some garden. Now, the Sumerians said that Adapa and Titi were originally in the Garden of Eden, and their job was to serve the gods, and make sure the other humanoid-like creatures were doing their jobs to serve the gods. They were like house slaves. But no, there was no Adam and Eve. People were in existence longer. The Adam and Eve story had to have happened around 6,630 something BCE. But we know that there were human civilizations around much, much longer than that. No J sound to the 6th century. So where did Jesus, Jude, Jacob, etc. come from? That is called an, I was about to say the wrong word. So you had Hebrew names for each one, like Yeshua, but the Greeks didn't have the yeah and sh sound in their vocabulary. So when they wrote the Septuagint, instead of writing Yeshua, the closest thing they had was Ius. No, Isus. They had Isus. Is it Isus or Ius? I think they had Isus. Yeah, they had Isus, which meant the saving Zeus. So it was the closest thing they had to it. Thank you. You must have the Greek alphabet in your damn on your phone on your device. So they wrote it as Isus. And then when the Latin was when the Vulgate was, I mean, when the Septuagint was translated to the Vulgate in Latin, the Isus became Ius, and then so if you find an older Bible prior to the King James, and some King James you'll still see it, but prior to most King James, it still had Isus, Ius in it. And then when the J came out, they changed it to Jesus. But it's still all meaning the same person. What is that called? Not an interpretation. It's not an interpretation. They're not interpreting the name. It falls out my head of what it's called. But it's supposed to mean the same person. They just didn't have the vocabulary to say it the same way that they said it. And so you got the same name with Jacob and John and so on and so forth, that these names were just given Greek names that could match up as best as they could, and then into the Latin, and then into the English. Lost in translation. It's not interpolation, it's not translation, it's transliteration. That is. So it's really a transliteration. This is why I always tell people, don't base your arguments on the creation of the letter J. Don't base your argument on that. It's easily kicked to the curb if somebody understands transliterations, right? So because it's easy to see how it still has the same meaning, same person, same idea. It's just like Boondock said, it just gets lost in the translation because they didn't have those sounds. Kind of like, have you ever talked to somebody who's straight from Japan, right? They don't have I know it's the W sound in their vocabulary, and I think the V sound is not in their vocabulary. My daughter Simone will be better at this since she speaks Japanese, but they don't have those two sounds. So when they speak English, that's why you get some of the jokes that Americans make, because the Asian countries, most of them, but definitely Japan, don't have those sounds. And so when they get a word that's got a W in it and got the "w" sound in it, they can't say it. They struggle to say it. But let them have children in America. Those children grow up in an American school and so on and so forth, and all their friends, and the children can pronounce it. It's just what you grow up hearing. So they can't pronounce Volvo. I've never heard a Japanese person say Volvo. The next time I get a chance, I'm gonna say Volvo. But they got to be like from Japan. They got to still have that within them. I have no idea what you're talking about. Why you were Hama? Why you were? Oh, why you wear a hansama? A hansama, is that your? Is it your god or talisman? No, it's just jewelry. It's just jewelry that I like. I understand what it means. I understand the different. I understand its different meanings. It has a general meaning of protection against the evil intentions of other people. That's what it has the meaning of throughout different cultures. This was also considered the hand of Mary during the Middle Ages in Europe, and they believe that it protected them from crib death, basically, as well as helped them with being fertile, and they believe it protected them from Lilith. But it's just jewelry. I protect myself from people's bad intentions by not letting their bad thoughts become my thoughts. Because everything you do, everything that's about you starts with your thoughts. If you think that you're going to be sick, guess what you're gonna do? You're gonna be sick. I remember when I was a kid, my grandmother told me one time, she was, because I was like this, my cousin was messing with me, and she was like, I'm gonna put a spell on you, I'm gonna put a root on you. And I was all crying, yeah, grandma, she gonna put a root on me. And my grandmother was like, it won't work if you don't believe it. And that stuck with me for like, that was a big thing that stuck with me. It's not only Arabic or Jewish, but you can also find it in the Babylonian culture. You found it in the Assyrians, Akkadians. It was in Christian European culture. It's in the Janus culture. It's in a lot of those cultures that had connections with each other. And you can find a similar idea in West Africa, in the Central America, North America. Everybody tended to have this idea that people can put evil intentions on them and spells on them. And so all kinds of talismans and other bullshit was created when it's all just mental. It's all just mental. That's it. It's all just mental. Like I said, my grandmother told me, can't nobody put a root on you unless you believe it. It's all mental. My grandfather used to believe in that stuff. She swept his foot with a broom one time, and he took the broom and spit on the broom and then broke the broom in half. He had to break the root, the bad luck. And I was like, and my grandma was so pissed. She was like, now you're going to buy me a new broom. And she was Christian. My grandmother was a Christian, but she was a country girl. But she always thought those roots and things were stupid. See? My man here saying Greek culture, the evil eye was known as Mati. Mm-hmm. See, this shows me that, oh, I went and listened to the video, but I already had my mind made up because you listened to the video. I told you that I have problems with carbon dating myself. But obviously you weren't listening to the video or to what I said, because I definitely said, because I know I have problems with carbon dating. I don't think carbon dating can go back as far as they claim it goes back. But no, just like the rest of them, you don't listen. You hear what you want to hear. What was that? Do you think that the ancient mystery cults banquet influenced the Christian Eucharist? What mystery cult? Which one? Like John said, this was the first marketing campaign. Probably. If it wasn't that one, the first marketing campaign was, I have the power to make the sun rise again. Give me your charity, your tithes, and I will make the sun rise. If you don't, the sun will not rise. Or I can end the drought. Oh, no, I'm going too fast. I usually wear an unk because I had a great one that was made that was it's out of copper, but I keep breaking the necklace that it goes on. So I gotta get a new necklace for it. I like the unk because unks is a reminder of the balance between the masculine and feminine energy principle in the Hermetics, so that you always are reminded that it takes masculine and feminine energy to create or manifest anything. If you listen to what I said, the dating is incorrect. How can you prove anything? If you listen to what I said, it's pretty much what I explained to you earlier in this video, that since we know that mastodons stopped existing in North America at minimum 25,000 years ago, and for them to have the fossilized bones of a mastodon, and that means that mastodons had to be in America at least prior to 25,000 years ago. And since the human tools that were around the mastodon, there must have been some damn humans with them. It's a logical thought process. I didn't put the whole thing on carbon dating. I explained that I don't really go for carbon dating, but we do know animal migration and extinctions. And I talked about core samplings and a whole bunch of other stuff that you just didn't listen to. See, don't you love how they come on here and they just show that they don't listen, that they only hear what they want to hear because their mind is already made up that I'm going to disprove. It's a lie. It's a lie. It's a lie. It's a lie. I don't care what you say. It's a lie. It's a lie. It's a lie. Oh, no, 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 no. Oh, they got milk on the brain. Right. And they always want to disregard scientific technologies. And the thing about it, scientific technologies get better and better and better. At some point, we'll be able to figure out how old something is down to the decade at some point. We ain't there yet, but at some point we will. Oh, okay. The cults of Dionysus, Mithra, Osiris has something to do with the Eucharist. Yeah, I do think that those I don't necessarily all of them are cults. All religions are cults, but yeah, I think they did influence. That's why we was talking about how the Greek story, creation story, influenced other Mediterranean cultures, and definitely was a part of the influence on the Israelite culture, to which we derived our whole Bible Genesis story from. But over the last three lives, we talked about how the Sumerians, as well as the Kemetics, all of their stories, there are aspects of their stories that you find in this biblical story as well. Appreciate it, Mr. Dobson. You have a great day as well. See, this is a different in language. You see what he tried to do here? If dating can't be trusted, I never said that it can't be trusted. It just can't be validated down to the time frame that they were given. Now, carbon dating, since what's the half-life of carbon? This is fun for me. What is the half-life of carbon? So a half-life of carbon 14 is 5,730 years. So let's just round it up to 6,000 years. That means, in my mind, unless I'm just crazy, that scientifically you can only date carbon-14 up to about 12,000 years. Well, in this case, 11 to 12,000 years. So to utilize carbon dating to go beyond that, it's bullshit to me, because then you can't half-life a half-life and half-life a half-life. That makes no sense. But if we know that half of the carbon is gone after almost 6,000 years, then all of it should be gone after 12,000 years. So it wouldn't work beyond that. But even if that be true, if Mastodon, if they use carbon dating for the Mastodon, that would still put a Mastodon at the furthest back time frame around 11,000 years ago, 10 to 11,000 years ago, which is older than the Bible. And that will put people in California. So if those people in California around 10,000 BCE, and your Bible story doesn't start until 6,600 BCE, then that invalidates the entire Adam and Eve, Noah, all that bullshit. It all becomes bullshit. You see how that works? But it's not just, no scientist relies solely on carbon dating. We also know that Mastodons, again, went extinct in the Americas around 25,000 years ago at the minimum. Just like camels. Camels went extinct in the Americas. Did y'all know that camels were originally a North American animal? And then they migrated into Asia and into the Middle East and Levantan area. So we know camels were there, but not after 25,000 years ago. Not from now to 25,000, they weren't there. None, no camels. Horses were also something that was in America and then migrated around 25,000 years ago. What was happening 25,000 years ago? Ice Age, land bridge across the Bering Strait, right? So that's more than likely how they migrated to Asia. Haven't been one in America since then. But you find skeletons of them in the Americas. So that means, logically, that it had to be at least more than 25,000 years ago that they were there. Pangea would be too far, Chris. Pangea, at the rate of continental drift, Pangea would have to have been about 2 billion, 3 billion years ago. So that would be too far back, for Pangea. See, this is why I can't talk to them. They're stupid. You say something, they don't listen. I don't understand why Christians can't wrap their heads. I don't understand why Christians can't wrap their heads around the fact that allegories aren't literal historical events. And here's the thing that I say about it, Boondocks. I tend to look at these stories based on the people who were writing the stories at their time frame. When in the 500 BCE and 400 BCE, when they was writing these stories, putting them down on paper, they believed that Noah and Moses actually existed. They didn't see them, they saw them as something to learn from those people, but they saw them as actual history. It's kind of like, there are things about Alexander Hamilton that are practical for us to learn from his life. But he was a real person. Those events, him coming from the Caribbean and doing everything he did in America, actually, those are real things, real events. Some of it, as far as the play is concerned, the musical, some of it is not actually correct, but for the most part, okay. He wrote the Federalist Papers. We know that he wrote the majority of the Federalist Papers. It's not an allegory, he's a real dude. But you can take aspects of his life and learn from them. Like, don't overwork to the point where you lose your family or, stupid shit like that. So some of these stories are literal. They meant them literally. They walked around the walls of Jericho 7 times and blew the trumpets and the walls fell. Even though the time frame that they would have been, if they were in real actual existence, the time frame that they were walking around them walls, there were no walls in Jericho. From 1500 to 900 BCE, Jericho had no walls. So they could not have been walking around those walls around 1200 BCE, 1100 BCE, and those walls fell down because there weren't any walls. See, the problem is, oh, there were no walls in Jericho. Ooh, you know what happened? Joshua walked around them walls, and that's why the walls are down. Now let's go rebuild them. Yeah, tree rings are accurate. Accurate science. Right. God was a good guy and leaves Eve alone with the devil. Exactly. Just like this asshole Zeus. I'm gonna give Pandora shit. I'm gonna give Pandora this drive for curiosity, and then I'm gonna leave her alone with this box of shit that I told her not to open. Evil. Both of them. Oh, wait, where you go? Woolly mammoths disprove religion because religion doesn't talk about the Ice Age, Lorenzo. Why would they talk about a monumental period like the Ice Age? Exactly. It's kind of like when people say, if you think about it, even though I think that the Great Pyramids were built long before Khufu, I don't think Khufu built those pyramids. The Sphinx was definitely around long before Khufu. But if the Israelites were enslaved in Egypt during the 12th century BCE, which is the time frame that they would have to have been, no, 12th century, 14th century BCE, it would have to be 14th century, 13th century time frame. Well, the pyramids were there, the Sphinx was there, and them didn't mention that at all. Come on, man. You know they would have took credit for it. They would have easily taken credit for that. Yes, we were slaves in Egypt and we built the pyramids. Instead, they claim to have built the town of Pi Ramses, which was built in the 1200 BCE. And there is no mentioning in Kemetic history about them building anything. You think the Anunnaki built those? I do think um, see, I'm more in line. I don't necessarily go for Anunnaki from space bullshit. Pre-Ice Age civilization that didn't survive completely. Their civilization was torn down by the Ice Age, that the previous the last Ice Age, and then with the Younger Dryas flood occurring where sea levels rose 400 feet. I think they may have had more of a hand. There's more logically to think that they were a more advanced civilization that built those pyramids, and then they claimed themselves, or the people thought they were gods and claimed them to be gods, and they took advantage of them people. But we don't have any proof of that. I mean, now you got to start claiming Atlantis or Lemuria or Mu or something like that. But it's a theory, and it makes more sense because if the Egyptians had built the pyramids in their grandeur, then they would have recorded how they built them damn things. And the Great Pyramid is not a burial chamber. That chamber where the internal chamber, the king's chamber, that's not a burial chamber. And you can't and fire won't go in there. You have to have some type of artificial light to get in. And it's too damn tight. It's little as hell. I don't know if you guys ever been, but it's little as hell to get in there. And there's no ancient soot in there, so there was no fire in there. Right. I even go for this one that the Anunnaki are based off of star constellations and planets and all that kind of stuff, and they made myths and legends about it. The Iridu Genesis we covered 2 weeks ago. So if you go and look at my live videos, Jonathan, you'll see the Sumerian creation story. That was 2 weeks ago. And that's when we covered the Sumerian Genesis story, which is the Iridu Genesis. Chris, there are some hieroglyphics that people say is the Egyptians demonstrating a synthetic lights, your LED lights. The book is still out on that. No, I don't know who Mr. Imhotep is. Now, phosphorus is interesting because there's an alchemist who is credited, I forgot the alchemist's name, who is credited for creating phosphorus in the like 14, 15, 1600s, somewhere around now, 16, 1700s, when he was attempting to make the philosopher's stone. Now, does that mean he actually was the first one to do it? Probably not. And certain things are invented, then forgotten, invented and forgotten. No, Cisco. No rogue planet theory. Here's one thing about the Anunnaki that makes no sense and wouldn't work at all. It's supposed to be this 12th planet that swings way out past Pluto and back in, and it's part of our solar system. Any type of life that can exist on Earth, as soon as it leaves the habitable zone, that life ceases to exist. So it is absolute, unless they were a type 2 planet, meaning that they can draw energy from the cosmos itself, there is absolutely no way life that could live on Earth could be living on some rogue ass planet way out there past Pluto. Ooh. And this is the leading theory on the light bulb thing, is that it's a God showing he's blowing a bubble, dividing the primordial waters. Well, let me not say it's the lead theory. This is the one I have seen that one put out there. I don't know. I can't say. But what I can say is that it has been 2 hours and 12 minutes, and it is time to get off of here. Before I leave, again, I want to give one more thanks to the people, the people who donated to the channel, especially during this time frame when my stuff has been demonetized by Facebook and YouTube. So once more time, I want to thank Chris Sensat, Randolph Lumini, Hector Cortez, CJ Beatty, which I think is Chris, Derek Frazier, Samuel Smith, Anthony Givens, Tia Austin, Joseph Mayfield, Alfredo, Kelly Durden, Fred, and Karen Arnold for supporting the channel during this time frame of being demonetized. And hopefully all those things should be fixed and squared away by the end of February. But I appreciate you guys for being here. We next week on Wednesday, we should go live Wednesday at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time, since I'm in San Antonio. And we will go over the creations, the Hindu, or I like to say Indus, because that's the original name that they should be going by. Hindu was something that was given to them, but the Indus creation story. And we're going to see if there are similarities between the Indus creation story and the biblical creation story, because the Indus people would have had contact with the Levantian people in and around that time frame of Babylonian and captivity and Assyrian captivity. So that's what we'll go over tomorrow. And then, of course, after we finish the lesson part of it, we'll just talk about anything like we always do. Um, at least they don't spell it right. And we'll probably talk a little Buddhism since Nico kept bringing up Buddhism earlier next week as well. So I appreciate you guys. And I actually love the transition from Indus religion to Buddhism to the Tao. It's like you can see the growth in the philosophy of moving away from the ideas of gods and goddesses. And even though the true religion of Indus is not polytheism, it's actually monotheism. But when the Europeans came there, they told them that they were polytheistic, and now they believe that they're polytheistic. But originally, the belief in Brahma, um, all these other deities were just aspects of Brahma. It was just one God, one supreme God, and all the other ones represented aspects of Brahman. But we're going to look at it from how they believe in it today, and I am definitely going to throw in what the original thought process of what ended with the Indus religion, and then how Siddhartha Gautama changed it, and how he went into the. Now I ain't gonna go deep in the Veda text. I can't go too deep, and I only studied the Veda text for about 2 years, and then we'll talk a little bit about Buddha and Siddhartha Gautama Buddha, and my favorite, and one of my favorites, which is the Tao. I love the Tao. The Tao is just good philosophy. And the Tao is more hermetic than anything else. So, do I think Enlil impersonated impostor as Yahweh to Abraham? As far as the story is concerned, sure. As far as reality, nah. Neither one of them existed. And I appreciate everybody, and I feel this way about everybody. We don't have to always agree, but I do my best to respect you. As long as you respect me, I respect you. But if you say stupid shit, then I'm gonna call out your stupid shit. Or if you're nonsensical or you're just worthless, then I'm gonna call it out. I can't help it.
So I want to thank everybody for joining me today.
Since John doesn't think that voice actually comes from me.
I appreciate it. So always remember, you have to free yourself to be yourself.
Because your greatness is non-negotiable. Good journey. That one was for you, John. Good journey, good vibrations.